So the African Useless Union has done it again. If you can vividly remember, a couple of days ago, I made a video where I was talking about how useless and pointless this organization is to the African people. And I still, up to now, I still insist on the fact that it should be completely disassembled. We should dissolve it and move to something else. Something that really serves the interests of the indigenous people of Africa, the Africans, the true Africans. So a couple of days ago, the African Union stated that the situation or the current situation in Tanzania was concerning. And now suddenly, all of a sudden, they have gone completely full circle and nobody understands how to sending congratulating message to the elected or the re-elected president of Tanzania, Samia Suluhu Hassan. So we are going to be talking about this story tonight, and it's important for me to note to remind you or to make you aware of the fact that information coming out says that the Tanzanian government or Tanzanian authorities are dumping the lifeless bodies of Tanzanians who were massacred during the post-electoral protest or manifestation. We are going to be talking about that story tonight. And our featured story is going to be also about the serious threats which Donald Trump is making against the Nigerian government. Serious threats there. And considering that I'm going to be speaking or talking a lot about deportation, I think it behooves me to bring to you the story about Eswatini and its deportations, which started a couple of months ago, September, if I'm not mistaken. So, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. If you are new here, you're at MPA Unfiltered. Do well to smash the like button, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so that anytime or each time we release a new video, you're going to be instantly notified or alerted. So, like I said, Tanzania is going through a very precarious and tumultuous situation right now after their elections, which took place or held on the 29th of October 2025. So, Tanzanians went out in their numbers massively to carry out their civic duties on the 29th of October 2025, only to realize that something was happening, something was not normal. And what happened? Two of the biggest challengers or contenders of the incumbent president, Samia Suluhu Hassan, had been excluded completely. One was charged of treason and was in jail. The second was systematically disqualified. So she was really going now alone. All the other contenders were not really serious or opponents who had serious weight. So the people were really upset. And considering all the government repression which has been going on for quite some time now in the country, they got mad and they said, okay, you know what? We are going to descend into the street to protest and manifest, which is, by the way, in a democracy. You know, Africans talk a lot about democracy. In a democratic country, is that not normal? Do people not have the right to protest? Right? Well, unfortunately, they were met with outright brutality from the Tanzanian security forces. So what is really happening is that Samia Suluhu Hassan is set to secure a second term as president of Tanzania after taking over from ex-president John Pombe Joseph Magufuli in 2021. Now she's been accused of getting rid of political opponents by what? Jailing them, as I mentioned earlier, or disqualifying them systematically. It's important to note that she belongs to the ruling party, the CCM, which is the Chama Pinduzi, which has been existing now for almost forever, since 1961, which was the time when Tanzania had its independence. Now, the ruling party is being criticized of suppressing and putting aside opposition leaders or opposition parties. Now, when Samia Suluhu Hassan took over as president of Tanzania, there was a lot of hope for the country. Okay, finally, we have the first female president of the country. She's a woman, she's a mother. So a lot of things are going to change. Everybody was positive and very hopeful in Tanzania. After she took over from who? Like I mentioned earlier on, John Pombe Joseph Magufuli. Now, for those of you who might not know who Magufuli was, Magufuli is notably one of the strong and respected African leaders, African politician and president who refused vehemently to travel anywhere else outside of Africa and only traveled a few countries within the African continent. I mean, can you imagine that? An African president refused for all All the time he served as president, he never stepped foot in Europe or America to beg for money, anything. We had no deal with the IMF, the World Bank, nothing. He said, I'm going to stay in my country and build my country with the resources I have, be it whether limited or not. And I can assure you he did an excellent, a marvelous job in building the nation of Tanzania, the Republic of Tanzania, which by the time he took it was really relatively unstable. And he brought it to a stage that was, the country was booming, things were functioning, the people were happy. Of course, there was still some criticisms as normal, which is very normal, by the way. And what were his policies? We're going to look at his policy. What really made him succeed as president? There were three things. He focused on three things. One, anti-corruption crackdown. Two, infrastructure and industrialization. And three, education and social services. So we're going to look at some of the regulation or the policies he put around these three different aspects.
Corruption is a cancer. It's a disease. And if at all you are there to fight the disease, you must fight it seriously. Wako watu ambapo wakati wa bodi wanapoamua kukaa wanaona hakuna hoteli yoyote hapa Tanzania ya kuweza kukaa wakati wa bodi, wanakwenda Ulaya kwa ajili ya bodi zao wanazokaa.
He came at the right time. He was the right man at the right time, and he has done a tremendous job in trying to deal with the corruption.
So, on anti-corruption, Magufuli he cut public spending. Magufuli drastically reduced government spending on non-essential items. This included, one, banning unnecessary foreign travel for most public servants, instead directing them to use ambassadors and high commissioners abroad. He said to his ministers, what is the need of constantly traveling unnecessarily? If you have a problem, you have something that needs to be done abroad, you call, that's why we have ambassadors and high commissioners. Call them and let them do the job while you stay in the country and take care of the affairs of the country, which is what this is something that African leaders are supposed to emulate. And he saved a lot of money for the country. Two, slashing budgets for lavish official events, such as cutting the state dinner budget by 90% and diverting the savings to essential services like hospitals. You look at most African politicians and leaders, they are extremely fat, morbidly obese because of too much money. They steal a lot, kleptomaniacs. They steal a lot, eat a lot, drink. That's what they spend time doing instead of taking care of the affairs of their countries. So he said, no, before you leave your house, come for a meeting or a conference or a seminar, eat in your house, please. You have food. You are an administrator, you are being paid, you have a salary, eat in your house. If your wife cannot cook, get a second wife. If you have two wives and none of you can cook, get a third one. It's fine, you're free. We're living in a democracy, aren't we? This is what he said. Banning government meetings and workshops from being held in expensive hotels, mandating that they be held in state buildings instead. You see, look at most of these politicians, if not of that title or that crown they wear on themselves as politicians, as leaders. These people, if you take away those titles, they have nothing. And you see them when they become leaders, leaders to people whom they are supposed to be serving, their constituents whom they are supposed to serve, they spend time spending money on unnecessary things, booking hotels, which if they were not ministers or administrators, they would never ever have been able to go close to that level of luxury. So he ended all of this and said, you know what, we're going to cut unnecessary spending and really focus on building this country. This is what Africa really needs. Anti-corruption crusade. He launched a vigorous top-down campaign against corruption and tax evasion. Firing corrupt officials, he gained popularity by making high-profile on-the-spot dismissals of government officials suspected of negligence, corruption, or absenteeism. This is it. We have to be vigorous, straightforward, brutal. Somebody does something, there's no need calling for a meeting. No. Fire him on the spot. Absenteeism. We have offices. In fact, this is something that's very prevalent in most African nations. People who are working and they never go to work. Out of a week made up of 5 days, they go to work twice a day. When they go to work when they're supposed to be in the office by 8 o'clock or 7:30, they're in the office by 11 o'clock. When they get to the office by 11 o'clock, they drink themselves to stupor. You come to the office, you need something to be done for you. They ask you to sit down and wait. When you wait for 2 hours, you get tired, they tell you to come tomorrow. I mean, this is Africa. And this is how the people who are supposed to be leading. And by the way, leading or leaders who are working for the people, this is how they behave. So he had a serious crackdown on this. Next, ghost worker purge. Very important. He removed tens of thousands of ghost workers from the government payroll, resulting in significant salary savings. I mean, if you're an African, I think you totally relate to this and you understand what we are talking about here. Ghost worker. There are people, lots of people who are ghost workers. They never go to work. They are living in different towns, but they are collecting salaries. There are even some people who create fake accounts, fake profiles, and they collect salary in people under people's names who are not working or those who had been dead a long time ago. So he ended this revenue collection. His focus on efficiency led to a boost in government revenue collection, with the Tanzanian Revenue Authority reporting a substantial increase in monthly collections. Now, what were his policy around infrastructure and industrialization? Magufuli pursued an ambitious nationalist economic agenda centered on industrialization and major capital projects. Notably, mega infrastructure projects. His government committed significant funding to large-scale infrastructure to transform the economy, including one, the Standard Gauge Railway. Major construction began to replace the old metal gauge railway intended to connect Tanzania's major cities and link with neighboring countries. So he made some of these works or construction projects, which eased the movement of people from one city to another within Tanzania and even to other neighboring countries. Two, the Julius Nyerere hydropower station, a massive hydroelectric power project initiated to solve the country's persistent power shortages. This is something that's very common in African countries, by the way. No electricity. No electricity. Nigerians can relate, Cameroonians can relate. No electricity. The revival of Air Tanzania, investing in new planes to revive the national carrier and airports. He renovated some of the airports and they became very beautiful. And by the way, for those of you who might not know, from my research, Tanzania is a beautiful, very beautiful country. Truly beautiful Eastern African country. Major roadworks, construction of major flyovers and interchanges, particularly in Dar es Salaam. This is the commercial capital, by the way, to ease traffic congestion. If you're an African, you know that one of the problems we face a lot is congestion because of poor roads and poor urban planning. So there were massive construction projects that were aimed at easing or making congestion completely reduced to ease movement of people in some of these very populated towns or cities. Now, under resource mining, he pursued major reforms to secure greater economic benefits from Tanzania mineral resources, often clashing with foreign mining companies. He introduced new legislation giving the government the right to renegotiate or terminate mining contracts. The government successfully negotiated for a 16% non-dilutable free carried interest in all foreign-owned mining projects. Now, what does this mean by 16% non-dilutable free carried interest? 16% non-dilutable meant that it was never to be reduced, it was never to go down, to remain at 16%, regardless of whether the company had offered shares out or not. And the free carried interest was that the country was not to partake in the risk of the functioning of this company. What does it mean? It means that there was no capital to be invested by the government. So all they had to do was to receive the agreed interest. These were some of the contracts which he renegotiated when he was president, which I can assure you led to a massive budget accumulation in the country. Now, and talking about education and social services, he gave free basic education. Magufuli introduced a policy to waive full school fees and other contributions for government-run primary and secondary school. This policy led to a substantial increase in school enrollment. So, these are the different policies which Magufuli set in place that really propelled his country. Now, Magufuli really came to be widely known around the world during COVID, when all countries, or most countries around the world and presidents were locking down their countries and imposing masks, mandatory for people to put on masks, and he refused, saying that no, he doesn't see the need for him to lock his country and force his people to put on masks. He refused. He was even seen in most public events walking without mask. And Magufuli is even known to have taken samples.
Enough vaccines for countrywide inoculation programs for its 1.3 billion people, while wealthier parts of the world have reportedly stockpiled surplus doses running into the hundreds of millions. Magufuli's speech is not the first time he has courted controversy during the coronavirus pandemic. His government has drawn criticism for its secretive response, and the president has previously asked Tanzanians to pray the coronavirus away.
From animals, plants, and sent for testing for COVID, and it all came back positive. I mean, he was like, what type of disease is this? He took banana, I think mucus from cows, different set of plants, pawpaw, and sent for testing, and they all came back positive. And Magufuli said, you know what, if this disease is really that dangerous, how can every single thing test positive? Oil positive, meat positive, pawpaw positive, banana positive, then there has to be a problem. And that's when he knew it was a Trojan horse. It was a hoax. It was a lie, complete lie. And I can assure you, he pissed off most international governments and organizations. Unfortunately, in March 2021, Magufuli suddenly went silent.
Corruption is a cancer. It's a disease. And if at all you are there to fight the disease, you must fight it seriously.
Silent and disappeared from the public scene. So unfortunately, in 2021, Magufuli suddenly went silent for some time. In March 2021, Magufuli suddenly went silent for a while and disappeared from the public scene. And it was later on announced in that same month that Magufuli had passed away due to a heart problem associated to COVID-19. I mean, that was literally, genuinely very suspicious, right? This is someone who was very anti-COVID, refused to lock down his country, refused to impose mandatory masks, refused to impose curfew upon his country. And then suddenly we are being told that he just went silent, and then suddenly we are being told that, he passed away. So this is when Samia Suluhu Hassan, whom at the time was serving in his government as vice president, took over from him, and she tried to reverse all, or at least a good majority of the harsh policies which Magufuli had set in place to repudiate and suppress opposition. Because as much as he did a lot of good things, he was outrightly and very much criticized for some of his policies against media. So let's look at some of his policies which were considered harsh, which I think is understandable. This is not something that is unique to African leaders, by the way. Leaders or presidents in the entire world, even in Western democratic societies, leaders are always criticized for their harsh policies against.
Muda wote niliochaguliwa kuwa rais sija suppress democracy, na bahati nzuri na promote democracy. Democracy lazima iwe na mipaka yake, kwa hiyo hakuna suppressions. Tunachofanya ni kulingana na katiba na maadili ya nchi yetu.
Magufuli was criticized for his suppression of dissent. His government passed several laws and took actions to restrict the activities of opposition parties, civil societies, organizations, and media, banning political rallies. He ordered a ban on political rallies and demonstrations until the next general election. Crackdown on media. Media outlets were fined or suspended for publishing reports critical of the government. So these were some of the harsh policies which Magufuli has set in place. Now, Samia Suluhu Hassan, she came in, like I told you from the beginning, there was a lot of hope, and she reversed most of these policies. Starting one, she promised to carry out lots of reforms in order to propel or push the country forward, as do most politicians, by the way. This is what, whenever a politician or someone who's campaigning to be president, this is always part of their campaign speech. Oh, I'm going to do this very good, beautiful, beautiful, crafted sounding speech there. But immediately they ascend or are sworn in, it becomes a completely different story. So, secondly, she unbanned political rallies and allowed opposition leaders to organize events and publicly carry out and freely and publicly carry out their events and rallies. Thirdly, she loosened the media restriction which had been in place, enabling some broadcasts and newspapers to be able to resume operation. She released political prisoners and organized a more inclusive and open dialogue with opposition leaders.
Rights activists in Tanzania say it's not safe for them to hold a meeting like this, so their counterparts in neighbouring Kenya read a statement to the press.
Tanzania is in the grip of a state-engineered massacre. Security forces have been storming homes, dragging citizens out and shooting them on their doorsteps for daring to protest the sham election of October 29, 2025, or simply for rejecting the tightening authoritarian rule under Samia Suluhu.
President Samia Suluhu Hassan was announced the winner of the election. The polls 10 days ago triggered.
And lastly, or most importantly, she tried to repair the very strange and hostile relationship which Tanzania had at the time with the international community and some international. Remember very well that I mentioned this is someone who was very anti-COVID. Of course, you would very much imagine, a lot of political leaders in the Western world or so-called democratic nations were against him, and notably, and many international organizations as well, notably the World Health Organization. By the way, it's important for me to know that another president at that same period, at that same time, the president of this country, Burundi, Peter Nkurunziza, who also refused to impose mandatory masks on his people, refused to impose curfews in his country, to lock down his country, suddenly, abruptly, out of nowhere, boom, was declared dead. And the reason for his death was said to have been a cardiac arrest, heart problem. You just have a heart problem and then boom, you go after speaking against COVID. So this is how Samia Suluhu Hassan came into the political, or let me say, into the presidential scene. This is how she became president. And like I said very much, like I very well stated from the very beginning, the ruling party, the CCM, the Chama Pinduzi, has been criticized. And this party has been the ruling party ever since Tanzania had its independence. Now, I would like to be very fair and do not be disingenuous here. I want to believe that when she came in, she had real intentions to govern the country. But maybe I'm supposing, and that might most likely be the case, she wasn't the one pulling the shot, because remember, she belongs to a political party. So there are people who run the affairs of the party. There are big business tycoons who are part of that party, and their interests have to be protected and preserved by all means. The same thing with even the United States. Look at the United States. Trump is there. Yeah, he talks. I like Trump, by the way. He talks, yeah, but then we all know that his donors are the ones who really are really calling the shot. This is very reminiscent to an interview which Putin made back in the day, where he said he has been president and he has seen 3 United States presidents. When you come in, they all come in with beautiful ideas, amazing ideas, changing ideas. But when they come in, the men in black suit turn up and tell them how things are really run here. That's a deep state. I think this should be an example. This could be an example. Or maybe she was just bluffing. She was just playing a show. It was all a show for people to really buy into her narrative that she was having good intentions, and then boom, later on unmask her true and real self. Anyways, by the way, personally, and I think most people share this view or this opinion as well, I do not really have a problem with the party staying for as long as possible, or even a president staying for as long as possible, honestly, for me, because there are other countries who are doing so well. You look at China, you look at Russia. China, the CCP is there for God knows how long. But the country is doing well. That is what the people are asking for. We want things to be functioning, for there to be water, there to be light, there to be good roads, infrastructure. We want people to be able to live like real 21st century human beings. That is all people are really asking for. Like I said, the useless African Union has now come out to declare Samia Suluhu Hassan, not to declare, but to congratulate her. So let's look at what they are saying. The chairperson of the African Union Commission congratulates Her Excellency Samia Suluhu Hassan on election victory, reaffirms support for Tanzania. The chairperson of the African Union Commission, His Excellency Mahmoud Ali Yusuf. By the way, Mahmoud Ali Yusuf is the ex-foreign minister of foreign affairs, the ex-minister of foreign affairs of Djibouti. Takes note of the result of the presidential election in Tanzania and congratulates Her Excellency President Samia Suluhu Hassan for her victory. The chairperson deeply regrets the loss of human life during the post-electoral protest and extends his sincere condolences to the families of the victims. Really, for how long are we going to continue extending condolences to family of victims? Is this what we call democracy? Is this democracy? You just kill people, you murder them in cold blood, and you dump them. That is what is happening right now in Tanzania. The lifeless bodies of Tanzanians who were being murdered, butchered, are being dumped. He underscores the imperative of upholding fundamental rights and freedoms, including the right to peaceful assembly and expression, and encourages the authorities to safeguard this. He says the fundamental rights of freedom. So those who were killed, were they terrorists? Is this what is being brought upon them as charges? Were they terrorists? Because he's talking about fundamental right of assembly. Do people not also have the right to manifest, to protest, to say no, they're not comfortable, they're not happy? And what I find truly infuriating is that, you see, when all these things happen, there's some group of people out there, they come out, oh, they want peace. They talk about peace, peace, peace. How on earth do you expect to have peace? So you see this group of people, when there's anything, they sit there, oh, peace, 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 peace. How on earth do you expect that when a country has been tainted and painted all over with injustice, there should be peace? How do you expect that to be? Oh, what peace? Oh, what peace? Do these people even understand the meaning? Do people know what is the meaning of peace? I remember back in secondary school, this buffoon, this clown, I used to have an argument with him almost all the time. Even when I had no knowledge about politics, I was not interested into all of these things. But I still, at that time, I knew what peace meant. Peace doesn't mean, peace is not opposite of war. No, not at all. Of course, we are not in Libya or Afghanistan or Syria or anything like that. But we know for sure that most African countries are not at peace. And in fact, a good contingent of African countries are not at peace at all. So when, there's an African country, Central African country right now. You definitely probably know the country I'm talking about. You see injustice all over the place, brutality, killings. And people come up, oh, ambassador of peace. We are ambassadors of peace. We don't want peace. No hate speech. No hate speech. To these people, there is this idea that most people have that African leaders, Africa is suffering or struggling because African leaders are very incompetent. In fact, you have to be extremely naive, stupid, and credulous for you to think that African leaders are incompetent. No, they don't give a shit. They don't care. They don't care. And why do they not care? Because you are not the ones who put them there. You're not the ones who put them there. So they are not responsible to you, the citizens. The leaders normally are supposed to serve the people, but you're not the one to put them there. By the way, Samia Suluhu claims to have won by sweeping 98%. 98% in the 21st century. Really? Really? And if you are claiming to have won by 98%, why then are you being sworn in the military barracks? Why are those who voted, the 98% people who voted for you, where are they? Where are they? I mean, do these people think that we are just stupid? We are just nincompoops, clowns. Anyways, we have to move on. We have to move on. So our next story, like I told you earlier on, is the massive, serious allegations Trump is accusing and making serious, poignant threats against the Nigerian government, accusing them of having endorsed a Christian genocide. That's what Trump is saying. So Trump went on the social media platform, Truth Social, and he said this, quote, Christianity is facing an existential threat in Nigeria. Thousands of Christians are being killed. Radical Islamists are responsible for this mass slaughter. I am hereby making Nigeria a country of particular concern, but that is the least of it. When Christians or any such group is slaughtered, like it's happening in Nigeria, he says when Christians or any such group really, does Trump really care about any such group? Because I want to believe when he says any such group, what he's talking about means what? Any group of people that can be considered to be a religious group, maybe it could be Muslims, could be Buddhists, could be Jews, whoever. When Christians or any such group is slaughtered, like it's happening in Nigeria, 3,100 versus 476 worldwide, something must be done. I am asking Congressman Riley Moore, together with Chairman Tom Cole and the House Appropriations Committee, to immediately look into this matter and report back to me. The United States cannot stand by while such atrocities are happening in Nigeria and numerous other countries. We stand ready, willing, and able to save our great Christian population around the world. I really like Trump, our great Christian population around the world. If the Nigerian government continues to allow the killing of Christians, the USA will immediately stop all aid and assistance to Nigeria and may very well go into that now disgraced country, guns ablazing, to completely wipe out the Islamic terrorists who are committing these horrible atrocities. I am hereby instructing our Department of War to prepare for possible action. If we attack, it will be fast, vicious, and sweet, just like the terrorist thugs attack our cherished Christians. Warning, the Nigerian government better move fast. So this is what Trump is saying and accusing the Nigerian government of. I want to point out something. He says our cherished Christians. Really? So do you really sit and believe that Trump not only cares about so much about the Christians around the world, but Christians in Nigeria? Nigeria. Of course, it is undeniable that Nigeria has a very big economy. In fact, Nigeria is the biggest economy in Africa by purchasing power parity, not per capita income, but purchasing power parity. So it means that Nigeria's voice has a lot of weight on the international or the global stage. But the fact that he said our cherished Christians, I mean, Trump now cares about Christians in Nigeria. And what really disheartens me is the fact that a lot of religious people, and this is the problem with Africans, a lot of identity politics. Oh no, it's Christians, they are killing Christians. You don't look into it, you don't even you don't take time to really analyze what is Trump really saying. By the way, when he said this, I did my research. Christians are being persecuted all over the world, not just in Nigeria, by the way. Christians are persecuted in India, in China, North Korea. But of course, he will not mention those countries. Of course, he cannot, because he knows the consequences. Now, let's even look at countries where they are being persecuted by known state actors, meaning groups or terrorists or whatever organization it might be. Somalia, Yemen, Afghanistan, Nigeria, and many others. Why doesn't he talk about those ones? No, because there is a specific reason, there's a specific interest here why he's attacking or focusing on Nigeria. Now, it's important for you to know these two things. Nigeria is one of the countries that stood firm and refused the deportation of migrants onto their soil, onto their country. And that really pissed off the Trump government or the US government. That's one of the things. Secondly, Nigeria officially became a partner country of the BRICS bloc in 2025. January 2025, Nigeria officially became a partner of the BRICS bloc. And the US didn't really take that very well. As if that wasn't enough, Nigeria called out Trump's bluff on tariffs and refused to plead and send a delegation to go. They did not panic, refused to send any delegation to go plead with Trump like Ramaphosa and other African leaders. So
said in your introduction, a country of 230 million people, so we have a huge internal market, and we've got not only size, but we've got scale. So the ability to scale up allows us to be to prove ourselves, to insulate ourselves from some of the possible fallout of these tariffs. And that also means we have a larger talent pool than smaller countries. We can absorb that, and we can, of course, trade with other countries, which is what the Tinubu administration is trying to emphasize: strategic autonomy.
So the Trump and the U.S. government is like, what? These people, what do they think they are? We have to teach them a lesson. And by the way, the UN, the US considers countries who act in this way, the countries that have refused to accept deportation of migrants onto their soil, they consider them. In fact, they are being designated as being, the action is being considered as being recalcitrant and uncooperative, recalcitrant, very stubborn. How dare you? How dare you say no to the United States? Nigeria, South Africa, Ghana, Burkina Faso refused. Burkina Faso, I'm sure by now you must have known that Ibrahim Traore, the current leader, the brave leader of Burkina Faso, is fighting the US government tooth and nail. He's refusing to bow. He's refusing to be subdued, to be subverted by the US government. And the US is not taking it lightly. So here are two things which I just mentioned. The fact that Nigeria joined the BRICS bloc, they refuse to beg or plead on to negotiate in regards to the tariffs. The US is not very happy with that, of course, obviously. And the US wants to use here is what is really happening. All this show, this drama, two things. The US wants to attack, invade. By the way, how dare you? What gall, what temerity for you to leave your country and go to a sovereign nation and threaten to invade their country? In fact, if people have a problem and they do not ask for your help, who are you to come into someone's house and tell them that they have a problem and you want to solve the problem? So you have become the problem solver of the world. You have enough problems in your country. Why not stay there and solve the problem in your country? So there are two things. It's all about oil. It's all about oil. By the way, where they are claiming to establish their military base is not even where the crisis going on in Nigeria. I got from a Nigerian acquaintance that there's Boko Haram in Borno State. There are criminals in Zamfara and Katsina. We have the IPOP in Enugu and Anambra State, but they want to establish their military base in Port Harcourt, where Nigeria's main oil is concentrated. It's clear. They told us that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction. It was all about oil. They told us Libya, no democracy, it was oil. They recently told us that Venezuela, drugs. It's all about oil. Now they're coming to Nigeria. So Nigerians have to be very careful, because I know how my African brothers are with identity politics. Oh no. And they know this very well. That's why he knew the angle to touch. So like I said, I repeat, the Nigerians have to be very careful, because this is the strategy. This is the old strategy in the bullies playbook. They want to browbeat and strengthen Nigeria so they can invade and destroy the country completely, like they have done in all across Asia and in the Middle East in particular, to be very precise. So I'm very happy with the reaction from the Nigerian government. The Nigerian government has come out and outrightly denied these claims, saying this. The Nigerian Minister of Foreign Affairs has come out and said these claims do not reflect the internal affairs of the issue, the current issue going on in Nigeria. Because, by the way, he tries to make this about a Christian genocide, but he doesn't mention the fact that Muslims and Christians are victims of these terrorist organizations. These people who purport this horror on the civilian on the civilian population. Like I told you, it's two things. It's about oil, and they want an opportunity to get closer to the Sahel states so they can destabilize them from within. Because remember, as I earlier mentioned, Burkina Faso is one of the countries that vehemently stood against and refused the United States from sending the deported migrants into their sovereign territory. And like you know, Ibrahim Traore is one of those fearless leaders, young fearless leaders, African leaders, who have said, no, we are not going to bow to Western and American hegemony. We are not going to be subverted. We're not going to be subdued by these people. Enough is enough. And I'm really proud about that. So, I think we're going to move on to the last story, which I said, since I was going to mention about a lot about deportation, it behooves or it's important that I should talk about the current situation in Eswatini, which started in September, if I'm not mistaken. So, while Nigeria, South Africa, Ghana, Burkina Faso refused migrants to be deported onto their territory, well, the United States found a country where they could deport migrants into their nation, which is none other but Eswatini. So Eswatini is this beautiful, small, tiny little Southern African country. Landlocked, it's a kingdom, by the way, landlocked kingdom in southern part of Africa, bordered by South Africa and Mozambique. Formerly was called Swaziland up until 2018, where it changed its name now to Eswatini. So what is important to understand is that Eswatini teaches a monarchical system. So they live under a monarchy. So we have the head of state, which is the king, and the head of government is the prime minister, right? With a population of about 1.2 to 1.3 million. So it's a really small country. Now, so earlier this year in January, the US began a policy of deporting those they call illegal migrants, right, into third world countries, especially those whom their home countries have refused to take them back, as they claim, by the way. That's what they claim. And should I say unfortunately, I think luckily for them, they found Eswatini who accepted to take those migrants. So there's been some serious public outcry and protest all over the nation or the country of Eswatini at the time in September, if I'm not mistaken. So the people are complaining. The people are upset and are complaining, saying that how can a small country like Eswatini with very limited resources become a dumping ground? Well, it's because of the policy of your leaders, right? Those migrants did not just appear in the country. Your leaders accepted that they should be dumped there. And that's exactly what Trump is doing. So what has the government said about this? The current condition of deportees. These individuals are being held in Matsafa Correctional Center in a maximum security or high security part of the prison, in isolated or solitary confinement. They have reportedly not been granted regular access to legal counsel or other legal rights, and there is concern about how long they will remain in Eswatini. The government position. Eswatini's government says the detainees pose no threat to national security. The government says the five who were deported to Eswatini are in transit and will ultimately be repatriated to their countries of origin. However, a firm schedule for such repatriation has not been widely confirmed. So this is the government's position. Now, the pro-democracy activists in Eswatini have come out to protest, both in Eswatini and others in exile, notably at the US Embassy in Pretoria, South Africa. And they are demanding for transparency, seeking that the parliament be involved and let this deal be reversed. Right? Well, what is currently being debated are the precise terms of the agreement with the US. The people are asking, Is Eswatini being paid? Obviously. If you do not know, drum roll. Yes, they are being paid. They are being paid. Under what conditions is this deportation being carried out, or is the agreement even being held? And what are some of the oversights? What are they missing out? Right? This is what the people are asking. And by the way, when will the repatriation of these people, of these migrants or these non-citizens be to their home nations? And is the US claim of them having been refused by their home countries actually true? These are some of the questions the people are asking. Is it accurate, or this is just a lie that the US is making up? And they're also asking that what will happen in the future? Are there still going to be possible such deportations? Well, if you don't know, I'm opening, I'm telling you now, there's definitely going to be, because your leaders don't care. They don't care. They got their money, put in their bags, and they bounce. That's it. So thank you very much. If you've watched up to this point, thank you very much. Do well to like. Do not forget to like. Share the video. Drop your comment in the comment section, by the way. What do you think?